Controversy over Cracker Barrel's new logo continues to escalate. One of the restaurant's board of directors now facing major backlash over his heavy DEI background and support for far-left values. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joining us. So we talked about it last week. It's only ramped up. We know that this logo change is part of the restaurant's rebranding campaign, but as each day goes by, it just seems like this outrage is growing.
Hey y'all, so as y'all can see, I work at Cracker Barrel as a waitress, and we're struggling. You see all these people? We all got here at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Well, I got here at 4, and I've only had 3 tables tonight. Everybody has had like 2 or 3 tables max. I say at least like 9 tables their whole shift. Like tonight, I've only had 3 tables, and I've made $13 total. So yeah, Cracker Barrel, what are we doing? What? Something's got to give, y'all. People got families to feed.
All right, guys. Well, huge breaking news and a cultural victory for American identity tonight, as the Cracker Barrel rebrand is indeed over. After just about 2 weeks of massive public backlash, a gigantic wipeout in market equity, right? Their stock price was sliding off a cliff, and potentially even the intervention of President Donald J. Trump. The Cracker Barrel company is now apologizing for their decision. They have brought back the old logo. It's looking like they're going to bring back also the old layout and architecture and decorations of the stores. And needless to say, this is something that I think 80, maybe 90% of Americans who have an opinion on this are celebrating, but I think it also stands as a strong lesson, not just on the front of things like DEI or wokeness, but maybe getting at an even deeper conservative idea, which is that some things are better left alone, right? If it's not broken, don't fix it. Indeed, some traditions of our culture, of our country, are indeed worth preserving and keeping, and the market, the public opinion here, is seeming to agree. So in today's video, I want to give you the big details as we celebrate all of this. And again, thank you, Trump, unironically, because there's an argument to be made. He might have actually been the one to make this happen. So that said, we'll get into it. First, though, as usual, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, look, I don't want to give too much credit to Trump, because obviously there was a genuine reason and a need to do this before, but the timing is a little bit coincidental here, as just earlier this morning, we got the first comments on the situation from the President of the United States, who said the following, quote, "Cracker Barrel should go back to the old logo, admit a mistake based on customer response, the ultimate poll," that's indeed true, by the way, "and manage the company better than ever before. They got $1 billion worth of free publicity if they play their cards right." Maybe true there, by the way, because, I don't know how many people think of Cracker Barrel on a daily basis, but now you're thinking of the name. But here you go. Very tricky to do, but a great opportunity. Have a major news conference today, just adding that in. Make Cracker Barrel a winner again. Remember, in just a short period of time, I made the United States of America the hottest country anywhere in the world. 1 year ago, it was dead. Good luck. Well, indeed, that comment for good luck was well received, because just hours later, at about 6 o'clock tonight, we got the announcement that indeed Cracker Barrel is saying that its new logo, which was widely unpopular, is now going away, and they are bringing back the old timer, according to a statement given to Fox Business. But now here is the official words from the new Cracker Barrel CEO, who it seems after her months of arrogance on this, thinking she knew what she was doing. Hey, I went to business school. I know how to run businesses, guys. Okay. Well, now what is she saying? Quote, "The values that made Cracker Barrel great require me to fess up and tell you something. We blew it." Oh, you blew it, did you? Because you were saying for a long time that, no, listen, we know what we're doing. This is being well received. This is just like, she was implying this, but this is just a small fringe minority of MAGA right-wing backlash. Yeah, it turns out. Will you forgive us? Well, I guess that remains to be seen. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Will you forgive them? So in an attempt to keep our brand alive and true to its roots in an always shifting restaurant marketplace, we made too many changes without checking in with the folks we care most about, our loyal guests. Some people like the comfort of that old blanket by the fire, or even the chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes that always bring back memories of dinner at grandma's place. Yes, and by the way, that is the entire appeal of Cracker Barrel as a restaurant. They seem to have missed this. We'll talk more about that in a second. But here's the rest of the statement. We lost sight of that. This is my fault. Please don't be sore at my team. I'm the leader and I take full responsibility. At my direction, we're going to pause all the changes until we can sit back and listen better, maybe even in one of our classic rockers. When that's all done, you'll hear back from me directly. By the way, I think there is great speculation. She's probably going to resign very soon. I would be very surprised if she makes it much longer. After all, try justifying to the shareholders the fact that you wiped out hundreds of millions of dollars of market equity in the span of a couple of weeks by your own marketing decisions, but we'll talk about that in a second. She goes on here to state, until then, please come on in and enjoy the Cracker Barrel favorites you've always loved, and if you use the discount code DOBETTER, we'll just go right ahead and give you 10% off on your next meal between now and Thanksgiving. That's a comment from the CEO. Here are more of those details from Fox News. Take a listen.
But even the apology is getting backlash. Cracker Barrel spending $700 million on a rebranding plan that they say will turn the product from old rustic to perhaps more modern streamlined. Customers say that's just a giant helping of biscuits and bologna. They don't like it. So after a week's worth of backlash, the Tennessee-based company did put out an apology statement of sorts, which said, in part, quote, "We know we won't always get everything right the first time, but we'll keep testing, learning, and listening to our guests and employees." But the mea culpa, well, it didn't go down that well. Critics called it lame, and social media lit up with comments like these, quote, "You kicked Uncle Herschel to the curb. Now you are paying the price. Own it and stop making excuses." Another wrote, "Eating Sunday supper in a place that looks like a car dealership does not say vintage Americana." But the company's new logo, let's begin there. A simple gold shield with the restaurant's name. But gone is the image of a man affectionately called Uncle Herschel, dressed in overalls, sitting by a barrel. The company also says stores will be decluttered with fewer knickknacks on the wall, with brighter paint and booths. Critics call that soulless, sterile, and woke. Erasing heritage, they say. Another part of the apology statement, though, went on to say, look, the things people love most about our stores aren't going anywhere. Rocking chairs on the porch, a warm fire in the hearth, peg games on the table, unique treasures in our gift shop, and vintage Americana. But you know what, guys? It's not just the criticism that won't go away. The stock price for Cracker Barrel has dropped 10% since this controversy began. That translates to about $143 million in value being wiped off the books. So, yes, Cracker Barrel wants to move ahead and wants this controversy to go away, but it's not happening anytime soon. Back to you.
And in a second, I want to kind of go you through the timeline here of just how badly this CEO humiliated herself, and we can sit around and gloat about that. But I first of all want to, I guess, give my personal opinion on this because, you know, a lot of people are making this about DEI. You know, she's a DEI hire. They're saying this is an issue of wokeness. And don't get me wrong, there is truth in all of those things. But I think we're also missing in the conversation about this, maybe a deeper aspect of why this was such a failure. And it actually hits home at this, again, as I said in the beginning, the conservative idea that some things actually don't need to change. And what do we mean by that? Well, because I think what you saw with Cracker Barrel, essentially the big motivation for this idea was that, well, and you can see, by the way, here's the side-by-side of what the restaurant used to look like, right? Old-timey, yes, grandma's house, very much the vibe there, old Americana. And the new place looks like some type of millennial gastro bar burger joint or some garbage like that, right? At the core of this is this very myth that a lot of companies have been playing into, which is, hey, we need to always go along with every aspect of the changing and modernization of society. And I think what a lot of people worldwide, but especially in this country, are saying is that no, actually, not everything about modernization or change is good, and not everything needs to be revised or decolonized or all of this stuff. And what exactly do I mean by that? Let me be clear about this. Look, I'm 22 years old. I am far from a Luddite. I'm not exactly a grandpa sitting on his porch saying that things aren't the way they used to be. And there's many aspects of modern world stuff that I guess we all enjoy or whatever. But there is something very real about the idea that there's a lot of change, frankly, being forced on our society that we don't actually want, right? I think about Jaguar, for instance, a very similar story to this. Yes, EVs, climate change, all that stuff is woke, but part of the also idea is like, oh, companies need to all move us into the future. And they're moving into the future without asking the people in the present, hey, are you cool with this? And as it turns out, yes, some things actually do not need to go away. Sometimes people have appreciation for things that were doing very well the entire time, right? Whether that's gas vehicles, Jaguar vehicles, which used to be considered top of the line sports and luxury cars. And then now what are they saying, right? The company is basically here going bankrupt. Or this very idea of Cracker Barrel, which your entire sort of brand, your gimmick is based on, yes, this old school American identity, right? The days of the past, grandma's house. They're saying, no, that's antiquated. We need to move forward. We need to go into, the new millennial phase. Let's make it look like all these like burger joints, gastro bars. And then what happens? People say, no, we don't want this. Because guess what? We actually appreciated something about the past. And the real way this is connected to the idea of wokeness is not just necessarily that, oh, white walls makes you woke. No, it's deeper than that, because a lot of the kind of left-wing social revolution is based on this idea that we need to decolonize, we need to deconstruct everything. Everything from the past is bad, it's antiquated, it's evil, it's racist. Is that explicitly what Cracker Barrel said here? No. But they're still playing into this very idea. And again, a lot of people are saying, no, we don't need change, right? Yes, some things indeed, if it's not broken, do not fix it. I currently live, guys, in the state of Florida. And it's very interesting because knowing how people here, especially the locals, especially the natives, really feel about sort of the modernization of the world, I saw this coming from a mile away. Because, when you listen to national headlines from Fox News, you'll constantly hear about how Florida is booming, look at the economy, everyone's moving here. And that stuff is all true, don't get me wrong. But if you ask an actual Florida native about what do you think of the explosion of your state, and this like big time, economic growth and the boom and all this stuff, they're going to tell you they hate it. They all universally hate it. And a lot of Floridians say, right? They're pissed off about the fact that you replace, because they're Florida people, they're nature people, right? The historic green space and the outdoorsy stuff in Florida gets all bulldozed for modernist luxury apartments that are overpriced in rent and probably owned partially by BlackRock. Yeah, it turns out like there's aspects of the modernization of the world that people just don't like. And yes, perhaps, even if it's a time capsule to the past or something antiquated, quote unquote, there is something salvageable, there's something honorable, and there's something, by the way, profitable about keeping certain things the way they are. And yes, inherently, I would argue that's a conservative argument, but it goes deeper. And by the way, I don't think it's just about this logo, right? This logo change to me was kind of like whatever. Like, yeah, the colors are more simplistic, it's modernist, but really, I don't just think it's that. I think it's the way they changed these restaurants. They changed the whole vibe of the place. Just not right. Ask Waffle House, by the way, which has its gimmick based on being, I guess, Waffle House, right? I don't even know how to describe it. Has that ever needed to change? Imagine if In-N-Out, okay, California reference, but it's a 50s themed kind of fast food place. If they just changed overnight to be AI and all this garbage, would that fly well? No, obviously it would not. Because again, some traditions, some things are best kept well the way they are. Now that said, this is not exactly a theory. I think it's pretty clear, by the way, like why Cracker Barrel actually rebranded, and it's the fact that their stock price just went woo. But of course, hilariously, the hubris, the ultimate pie on her face moment is the fact that just about 5 days ago, you had the Cracker Barrel CEO defending her decision, saying 100%, no, this is very popular, guys. I know what I'm doing. The criticism is blah, blah, blah. And then, newsflash, just days later, she's in a totally opposite position.
Honestly, the feedback's been overwhelmingly positive that people like what we're doing. I'll give you another soundbite. I actually happened to be in Orlando last week with all of our managers. We bring them together and every other year. And the number one question that I got asked, Michael, was, how can I get a remodel? When can I get a remodel? How do I get on the list?
Oh, really?
So because the feedback and the buzz is so good, not only from our customers, but from our team members. They want to work in a wonderful restaurant. So we're doing everything for our guests and our team members.
Well, Julie Masino, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for answering those questions for all the Cracker Barrel fans out there. There's a lot of great changes.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
That has to be a world record of backtracking in terms of the speed, because I don't know how you, as the CEO of a major American company, can go from that comment, arrogant about it, saying everything is fine, it's doing well. People are overwhelmingly responding positive to us. All of the franchises are demanding to have a rebrand. 7 days later, less than that, a week later, all of a sudden, turns out we admit we made a mistake. Let's change everything back to the way it was. That's one for the history books, truly. And it also reemphasizes the idea that she has completely lost credibility as a CEO and, should never be allowed to touch that corporation or, frankly, any corporation ever again. Now, that said, the market is now responding today, because you did see Cracker Barrel lost a ton of market value. But ever since they brought back, indeed, the old logo, here you have the Cracker Barrel stock, right? People are once again inspired. They're confident now, knowing that the $700 million genius rebrand, hey, don't be sexist, I'm not a DEI CEO, was indeed reversed. So there you go. Big victory here today, guys. And the story gets even funnier, because it turns out, when we're kind of comparing the numbers here, few things in this country, in the United States of America, were less popular than the Cracker Barrel rebrand. But it turns out there is one exception to that rule, and it is indeed the Democratic Party, who likewise today, whether they admit it or not, this is kind of a defeat for them, I guess, in a way, but take a listen.
The Democratic brand right now has about the appeal with the American voter as the Cracker Barrel rebrand has with the American consumers. Bad, bad, bad. What are you doing? Oh, my goodness gracious. What are we talking about here in terms of big party registration changes in the key swing states? Let's look at the key 4 swing states that, in fact, do keep track of registration by party. Look, the Republican Party is in their best position at this point in the cycle since at least 2005, and all 4 of these key battleground states. We go out to the Southwest, Arizona. How about Nevada? Republicans haven't done this well since 2005. Oh, my goodness gracious, at this point in the cycle. North Carolina, I couldn't find a point at which Republicans were doing better at this point in the cycle. It's at least this century. It probably goes way back in the last century. And Pennsylvania, very similar. Republicans doing better at this point than at any point this century, at least as far as I could find. Now, what types of gains are we talking about here for the Republican Party? Well, let's compare it to this point during the first Trump administration all the way back in 2017. Look at this. The Republican Party gains in party registration compared to this point back in 2017 during the Trump first administration. In Arizona, you got a Republican gain of 3 points. Okay, how about Nevada?
Yeah, well, needless to say, thank you, Trump. Thank you for bringing America back. Okay, thank you for making us the hottest country in the world. And thank you for saving Cracker Barrel. I don't just mean that because he sent out one Truth Social statement. I think on a broader picture here, the fact that he won the 2024 election is the only reason right now the Cracker Barrel company is actually reversing course. And the reason I say that is because for the past several years, you've seen a lot of that kind of woke transitioning or rebranding, right? Remember when Land O'Lakes took the Indian lady off of the butter packages? Did anyone spot an eye? Did anyone say anything? Aunt Jemima, same thing? No, because back then, despite the fact they were widely criticized, despite the fact that they were unpopular, there wasn't quite the cultural capital available for companies to look around and say, oh shoot, we desperately actually need to change and do something. Except now, right, ever since, you could point to maybe things that even happened before the Trump election, but ultimately the utter vindication of the right wing taking back political power in this country in a very serious sense does have a downstream effect on the fact that you say, for instance, major corporations look at this and say, oh, wait a minute, maybe there is an actual market value to be had in things like tradition, in nostalgia, in a kind of homely identity. Not everything needs to be black rockified, I guess you could say, right? It doesn't need to be made into this modernist, pale, minimalist garbage, right? This is ultimately downstream and connected to politics. People won't realize it, but it's true. It's true. So anyway, so with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Cracker Barrel rebrand and the now, I guess, the second Cracker Barrel rebrand, which is to go back to the original? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.